So I've made several videos in the last maybe 2 months about the wood stove and a lot of the regulations that have taken place over the last, I don't know, 8 years or so. Those videos have been doing really well, so I thought I'd give it another shot. Eventually they're going to die down, so got to be cautious. You don't want to just keep doing them and flooding everybody with them. I got some updated news on governments and what they're doing to the wood stoves. It's interesting. A lot of states are giving rebates if you buy these wood stoves, but then it's just crazy. So another thing that has just come across my YouTube browser page was apparently there's states in the east that are going to run out of heating oil or diesel oil or whatever, or they're very close to running out, and so prices are skyrocketing. Apparently a lot of the northeastern states use diesel oil or heating oil to heat with. To me, that's strange. I've never heard anybody around here doing that. Around here, it's always wood stoves, natural gas, propane, or electric. I did heat with kerosene. A lot of apparently poor people, according to the YouTube video I watched today, use kerosene when in their mobile homes. Now, I've used kerosene, and guess what? I was poor. What's interesting is that the expert that came on to the news program, he deals in heating oils and kerosenes, and he said the prices are going to skyrocket. He said the kerosene is going to go up to $7 a gallon, which is extremely high for people who are poor. But they keep talking about this 25 days until we run out of diesel oil. I think what that means is, and I'm no expert and I don't really care, they have a stockpile of 25 days worth of diesel fuel. But if there's any interruptions in current production, a refinery fire or something like that, that could deplete. As a result, prices are going to go up, supply and demand, low supply, high demand, because we're coming up on winter. I've been trying to advocate that folks figure out a way to get a wood stove. Now, the best way to get a wood stove is go on Facebook Marketplace. Carolyn sees them all the time. We found this one on Facebook Marketplace. This one had only been used once or twice, I don't remember. It was obvious it hadn't been used at all, hardly. It was very clean inside and out. I think we got it for $4.50. Now, this one they don't make anymore. It's only a few years old, too. And the reason they don't make them anymore is because even though at the time this was the top of the line type of air tube wood stove, the EPA has already pushed this model out. It doesn't meet EPA requirements today that it did 2 or 3 years ago when it was made. But you can find wood stoves very comparable to this at Home Depot. But like I said, Carolyn just found one. I don't even think it had been used. I think they decided they weren't going to use it. They sold it for like $2.50. It was ridiculously cheap. I always keep a backup glass. I broke the glass before, so I have this glass and I got one up in the attic that I keep just in case something were to happen. Also, I have a sheet of metal. That way I can replace it with a sheet of metal if I need to. Now, we live in a tiny house, so we don't use hardly any wood, maybe a cord a year. I use maybe 3 to 4 sticks of wood. This is about the size that I would lay east and west. I would probably cut this stick in half to lay north and south. So I put 2 pieces on the bottom, north and south. So cut this in half, and I'd have one here and here. And then east and west, I'd have 2 sizes like this. And then I would have another one about half this size on top. So you may be able to see in here, I got 3 layers. So half sticks, full sticks, and then half sticks up there. So about 4 pieces total. What I've learned this year, now that all our wood is very cured, dried, it's below 20%, most of it's right around 15%, is if I just light it and let it burn full blast with that amount of firewood, it heats up and then dies down. But all this fire brick or whatever you want to call it, soapstone in here, I'm not sure what it's called, insulates really well. And so you get the stove up to about 500 degrees, just like an oven in the house. And that keeps the house warm for about 8 hours. So I started it when the house is about 62 degrees. Been really trying to toughen myself up to endure cooler weather, because Carolyn likes cooler weather. I like hotter weather. And I'm doing pretty good. I can put a little sweatshirt on. And now, these new modern stoves are very efficient. They burn most everything they produce, so like all the smoke and all that. This one's like 85% efficient. It's got these air tubes. And the air tubes burn the gases and the smoke, and they produce this little dancing blue flame right up there at the top of the ceiling. And that is what the EPA is regulating, is that air tube. They also make catalytic converter wood stoves, and they operate quite a bit differently, quite a bit more expensive. The catalytic converter is kind of like a radiator shaped thing, and it uses precious metals to ignite the smoke. So like I said, this one you have to get up about 500 degrees, and then it burns really fast. It takes about an hour to 2 hours for all the flames to die down, then you're just burning coals on this one. My understanding, some of these really high-tech catalytic converters, they're really expensive, can burn for up to 30 hours. In general, the more cheaper ones, I think it's about 10 hours. So you get about 2 more hours out of the catalytic converter than you do this. Now, the key to this is the dry firewood. In the previous video, I was pointing out that a lot of people were saying I'm an idiot, that I'm going to burn whatever I can burn, and I don't care what the government or the EPA says. And I made a point in that video that if we don't do what the government tells us to do on this, they're going to ban wood stoves. Well, I mean, they're already banning them all throughout the country. It's my understanding that Oregon and Washington, now I'll get commenters saying that's not true, but I keep Googling it, have either really high restrictions on wood stoves and pellet stoves, or they just outright don't allow them. And there's several municipalities all over the country, specifically California, that don't allow them. You'll get into the comment section, and there are people in the comment section that said, I would do whatever I could to get them banned in my neighborhood. I don't want that smoke. I get people in my comment section that says, I got asthma, and I'm not going to tolerate my neighbor burning wood stoves. So it's just a split in the country. It doesn't matter what the government says. It's just what people think about them. A lot of people in the comments section on my last video basically called me a traitor, that I'm complying with what the government says. Well, I'm not complying. I mean, that's not the point of the video. The point of the video was they're going to ban them. They're doing everything they can to ban them. Because we, as a society, don't really care what our neighbors think. I've learned that, especially in the comment section, with everybody complaining about each other. I'm going to do whatever I want. Well, you better not do whatever you want. Let's just look at it from the standpoint of your neighbor. So you're burning wet wood in this stove. First of all, it's going to burn terrible. So you really got to read the instructions on this wood stove to make it work. But the key is dry firewood. It was crazy, the comment section. People said, if I'm cold, I'm going to burn wet wood. Okay, well then you're going to have a risk of chimney fires, because creosote is developed from wet firewood. What happens is the smoke becomes gooey because you have that water in there, and it sticks to the chimney. And when it gets too hot, or there's a spark on it, I think maybe 500 degrees, a spark can hit that creosote in your chimney, and it will burst into flames, and this will turn cherry red and catch your house on fire. We had 2 chimney fires the first year we were here because we had to burn wet wood. Just like everybody said, oh, you got to burn wet wood. I'm going to do whatever I can. Well, I'm telling you that now that I have dry wood, I wish I would have worked harder at finding. I watched a YouTube video today, and this person had an average size house. I don't know how big it is, but he said he used about 5 cords of wood. Now, of course, he cuts his own firewood. But if you had to purchase firewood around here, it's about $250 per cord. So I did the math, and I kind of figured out how long you'd have to burn it. 5 cords, that would be $1,250 per season, or $250 a month roughly. It's not terrible, I suppose. I lived in an old 100-year-old home. It was 800 square feet, and I had an electric furnace, and we would spend $300 a year on the electric furnace. So there would be some savings on the wood stove. I think, obviously, because I live in a tiny house, that tiny house living is just a better idea. You cut all your expenses down. Cut your wood costs down, you cut your propane costs down. I mean, if we wanted to heat this with our little buddy heater, I can. So that's on propane. But the smaller the house, the better, if you're trying to save money. In the last video, I said the EPA was regulating these almost into extinction. And then there's some municipalities that require that if you replace your wood stove, your old wood stove, with a new one, you have to have someone come in, take out the old one, and recycle it. Again, a lot of people in the comment section said that firewood is carbon neutral because It sucked in all the carbon that it needed throughout its life, and now you're burning that carbon out, and the next tree is going to suck it back in. If the tree had fallen down, it would release all that carbon, of course, slower. This releases it more quickly. But that's not what they're controlling. They're not trying to control the carbon in the wood stove. They're trying to control the particulates, because they're saying particulates on a wood stove causes cancer. So it's another way for the government and the EPA to control this. And again, your neighbors. In New York, they're banning several things. In New York, they're going to ban heating oil boilers in, I don't know, 1 million BTU. And so they're going to have to rip those boilers out of their buildings and put in electric furnaces. New York, in October 2022, the best I can understand, I know somebody's in New York going to tell me that's not true. Best I can understand from Google searches, New York has banned wood stoves in new construction homes. California and I believe Washington and Oregon have banned gas stoves in new construction homes, and you have to install electric heat. But to take it one step further, the cooking stove that you use, they've banned also, and they're wanting you to use electric heat. Again, it has nothing to do with the environment in this case. They're pushing out this cancer narrative that these natural gas cook stoves cause cancer. I heard one YouTuber say that they wanted to get a wood stove installed and it was going to cost them $10,000. I mean, that's a lot of money. I just, maybe that's including the wood stove and all the paneling and everything. We use this metal paneling, which is what's recommended if you're not going to use fireproof drywall for your wall behind it. So there's an inch gap behind that metal. So if you're having someone to put in brick and all that kind of stuff and install the chimney, cutting the holes and all, I could see it could get up there a little bit pricey. If you could find someone that knows how to cut holes and does a little bit of hands-on stuff. I mean, I put mine in myself, and I'm not a huge expert on anything, but I was able to do it. I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and they're all over the place, and I mean, everybody does it themselves. It can be done. It's not really that difficult. If you can install this yourself, you can find these pretty cheap on Facebook Marketplace. I would highly suggest that you do that. The pipe, the chimney, can get up there in price. We bought 3 triple wall pieces of pipe for outside, so from the attic all the way up, and they were $100 a piece. So I mean, that gets up to a little bit of price. But this single wall wasn't quite as expensive, although I have learned that you probably should use double wall. So if you can click this up next box, it'll take you to the video where I was talking about this wood stove. So if I can inspire you, stay warm this winter so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.